Good evening and welcome to Momentous Live, episode 63. I'm Tristan Jutra.
I'm Gray Williams.
And that's all you get tonight.
And this is us.
Momentous Live, limited edition. Well, last week, unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, 3/4 of our regular Momentous crew were unavailable, and 100% of our backup Momentous crew were unavailable. And so for a split second, I thought, yeah, maybe I'll just do it on my own. And then I'm like, nah, no one wants to see that. What am I going to do? I'm going to just like have a split screen and do like Moon Knight, you know?
You could just talk to the audience. Be like, here's the story and here's what I think about it. And go from there.
Who cares what I have to think? I'm just a vessel of love, like Will Smith. Hello, Gray. You were tied up with a move last week we have to determine which is Momentous Infinite Loop and which is Momentous Park. So one of those two has moved. How has the move gone, which is going to last you 2 years until your next move, of course. How's your tech? The most importantly, how's your tech set up?
Good. I plugged everything in and it worked. And to be honest, I actually went through and all of the boxes of cables and things, like as I was pulling things out of boxes, I was organizing the cables and getting them into their appropriate bins. I've got a nice IKEA bookshelf over here that has everything organized for the first time in my life. I almost don't know what to do with myself. It's been a lot of work, right? It's just, the move itself was quite long. We ended up having to go back to get some of the stuff because it got left behind. So it's been challenging, but this is a really nice part of town. Really like East Van. Ray, is an East Van girl. So it's great. Walk outside, the birds are singing, and there's a coffee shop beside every other coffee shop. So
yo dog.
I've basically just been kind of like going from one to the next and hyper caffeinating. So if I seem a little jittery, so that's the reason why. But I've got my own studio now, and Ray has her own studio. So, and we have doors and walls, which we did not have in the previous place. So a loft is a great idea if you're single. Outside of that, can't recommend it.
Most importantly, it seems that you've got a pretty decent internet connection going there.
Yes, yeah. So we're gigabit down. Is it 250 up for Shaw, something like that? 150.
Nice.
So, and I'm using their Shaw pods for this particular machine, but I hardwired my PC.
Is that for Keurig or Nespresso?
They're about as disposable. But the place actually came wired with Cat 5e, which was lovely. Nice. So I just did a quick test on a couple of cables and plugged it in. Good to go.
Excellent. Well, speaking of good to go, let's jump in, shall we? Just a quick bit of follow-up. We're not going to linger too long because it hurts a little bit, but Terra Lunar's crypto crash, how UST broke and what's next. The short story that we touched on a couple of weeks ago is that the Terra ecosystem suffered a catastrophic crash. Their stablecoin became unpegged, had to do with the algorithmic stablecoin tied to their to their Luna token, and basically cascading failures, perhaps an attack, et cetera, et cetera. The entire crypto market took it in the chin because of that as well. And now Do Kwon, the founder of Terra, is pitching his second plan to resurrect the ecosystem. They had one plan that kind of got turned down, and the second plan maybe has a bit more. Just in 60 seconds or less, so we don't confuse our folks too much on this one. What's been the fallout in the last couple of weeks, and how does this plan B or plan C, as the case may be, look to make some people whole again and reboot the Terra ecosystem?
Yeah. So, I mean, let's be clear here. $2 million being withdrawn from Anchor and then sold below cost is $2 billion with a B. If that's not an attack, I don't know what is. There were a couple of people that were intimating that something like this could happen a couple of months ago, and Do, gave them a pretty brash, pretty brazen response. And it looks like his hubris basically has cost a lot of people a lot of things. Unfortunately, I had some friends who were overinvested in this and decided to make a decision that they can't take back. And so they're not with us anymore. So this is pretty heavy stuff. It's been a hard couple of weeks. Looking at the plans, there was a fork that they were looking at doing. Um, you know, basically what they were looking at doing right now is airdropping the new token on the new chain to users out there, and basically separating UST from Terra. At which point, I don't really know why this exists. When I was originally, interested in this cryptocurrency pair, it's because they were meant to arbitrage against each other. It just wasn't able to keep up with a $2 billion sale when they had 100 million Luna cap for minting per day. It's interesting because the timing on this was Machiavellian. Do Kwon had basically bought a bunch of Bitcoin to start backing Luna with, and essentially, it's like he was shaken down for it. He bought this Bitcoin. Essentially, he offered UST at a discount to some buyers, and they sold him some Bitcoin. And it looks like some of those folks may have actually been involved in the process of then scuppering UST and Luna and getting that Bitcoin and the Luna UST back at a discount. So it's right now I'm saying to a lot of folks, like, if you're in the Luna ecosystem, there are folks right now that are buying Luna and burning it, trying to see if they can force it's in the same sort of price range as SafeMoon and a few other meme coins right now, where bumping a zero means it could be retirement money if you put enough in, and I think it's that way madness lies. So, not financial advice, obviously. Take care of yourselves, but this is one where. Go ahead.
Finish your thought, please.
I was going to say, I have a pretty stringent process of, taking profit when it gets to a certain point with a certain cryptocurrency, and I dodged a bit of a bullet here, but not all of one. And it's really sad to see that paper value go up, because that could have been some of my house paid off. But
exactly,
yeah,
it's tough when you Luna at one point in the last couple of months was pushing $150, and last time we checked, it's a fraction of a penny. So, like you said, some people are like, "Oh, now's a perfect opportunity, right? You could, you can get orders of magnitude returns if there is some sort of bump." But if this plan goes ahead and that becomes Luna Classic, like, well, what actual value is left in that if the future is with the new hard forked chain, right, and a new ecosystem? So, I mean, there have been little bumps up before, and some people maybe have regained some of their losses, but like we've discussed before, with something like this, you want to be prudent, never invest more than you can afford to lose, because crypto goes up, crypto goes down, especially with some of these relatively newer chains. I mean, I believe this ecosystem has been around since 2018, 2019 or so, but still, compared to Bitcoin, which is going on 13 years now, and Ether, we're looking at 8 years. Those are those probably aren't going to go anywhere. But of the other 18,000 cryptocurrencies that currently exist, it's anyone's guess. So it's these kind of things that it's fun to take a flyer on, but just be very careful, because, like you said, sometimes people get in over the head and it ends up in tragedy, and we don't want any more of that. So thank you for getting us up to date on that, and hopefully the next time we get some Terra news, it'll be a little bit better. Now, one of the side effects of this sort of event is that, of course, we talked a little bit a couple of weeks ago about the Schadenfreude that exists whenever there's something that's happened. People are like, oh, yeah, people got to come into them, et cetera, et cetera. Very, very nasty sort of sentiments. But what happens is that crypto in general ends up with a bit of a stain on it, because they're, stories like this get mixed up with all of the actual scams that are out there, and even topics like ransomware, which is facilitated by anonymous cryptocurrencies, and even non-anonymous ones. One of my pastimes actually is when I get those fake ransomware scams that come through spam messages, as I look up the public addresses on them to see how much they've received from people who have fallen for the scams. And it's a non-zero amount, which is surprising. I guess if you're sending out millions of messages, some people are going to get freaked out enough to think they're actually being shaken down. So there's an article that came through called "Why This Computer Scientist Says All Cryptocurrency Should Die in a Fire." And I think it's interesting. We've heard of the political horseshoe. There's kind of like a tech world horseshoe when it comes to crypto, blockchain, Web3, and all this. And I know a lot of people who are very tech savvy, who are like all in on crypto, blockchain, Web3, and open to NFTs and stuff like that. And a lot of other very tech savvy people who, for various reasons, be they skepticism of scams, be they environmental concerns, be they why do we even need this? What problem is it solving? And so these people have their own opinions on this too. And a lot of it, some of it is people getting into their tribes. Some of it aligns a lot politically, but a lot of it doesn't. I mean, of course, people with libertarian streaks tend to be a bit more crypto positive, but it's kind of like all over the place. And we've got this, in this case, a professor, and sometimes the negativity we hear is from people who are maybe a little bit sour grapes, like tech people who kind of miss the opportunity and then see friends. Like I know one guy who made bank on Bitcoin like early on, and he is set for life, and he's got so many bitter friends that post on Facebook, and he just goes in there and is like, I tried to tell you guys. And so like I wonder how much of the bitterness out there is simply sour grapes from tech people who, like, if they had gotten in early when maybe they had first heard about it, that they would be singing a different tune, right? So we all bring our priors to this. And Gray, you and I have been dabbling in this world for a while, and we've done okay for ourselves, but none of us have neither of us have ended up with FU money. Otherwise we'd be doing this full time. But like we're open to it, right? All these things have issues, and there are some some positive elements, and obviously some some concerns to be had. So from the article that you see, we hear about enabling criminal enterprises. We hear about the old tropes. Like I don't know if it's in this one here, but people talk about like the tulip crazes of from the Netherlands from a couple hundred years ago, and it's just all Ponzi's and stuff like that. Sure, there's definitely Ponzi energy with some of these, but what's your take on this sort of rant where people are basically dismiss NFTs as like ugly little apes and talk about ransomware and talk this and that and the other thing, and don't seem to have anything good to say? What is your general take on folks?
Well, to be honest, like reading through this article, it feels like someone is quoting, the arguments against cryptocurrency from 3 or 4 years ago. There's not a whole lot of new information here. Really focuses on proof of work, doesn't talk about proof of stake that much. Obviously with the NFTs, they're an easy target because people have been buying JPEGs for a whole lot of money. Well, not completely ignoring the fact that it could be quite valuable for use as your passport or your driver's license. Which given the lineups that right now that we have outside of the passport offices, all across Canada. Don't you think that maybe a system that is on a distributed ledger that perhaps you could administer from home might actually be a much better way of doing these things? This guy really he feels like old man yells at cloud. Again, it's just like.
And these are the same people that bitch about companies like Ticketmaster having virtual like monopoly on ticket sales and stuff like this. Like, hello, these are the kinds of problems that could be addressed with blockchain. Right?
Yeah, and I mean it's fascinating. We've seen a run on the bank happen, like what happened with Luna in 1929, right? The financial system did pretty much the same thing. Now, here's the thing: I firmly believe that there were malicious actors involved this time around, whereas I think, it was unfamiliarity with what this thing that the stock market was becoming in 29. But it's looking at this, it seems like there is sort of this reductive urge to just tear it down because we trust our governments to continue printing money hand over fist and making every dollar that you earn worth less every second that ticks by. That for me just seems like such an odd thing. Like are there hiccups along the way? Yes, there are hiccups they're going to happen along the way, but we've seen that in financial systems around the world as they've evolved. So, this article it was an exercise in eye rolling for me. It's just
hope you didn't pull a muscle.
Yeah, no, it's just like I feel like I'm watching a comedian and I just want to sit up in the back room and get some new material. They're like this stuff was demonstrably untrue. years ago, and it continues to be demonstrably untrue. It almost feels
Mhm.
like, because they got a point on the board because something got taken down. Well, we were right about everything. You're like, actually, you were right about the way that your financial system works and the fact that this one was too close to it in
Mhm.
the way that it operated. And because, again, like I can't even begin to describe the mindset of someone who would take $2 billion out of a savings system to short. So this is the same sort of thing that they were trying to do to GameStop, right? Same sort of thing they were trying to do to AMC, right? It's a hedge fund short selling this stuff and basically trying to drive it into the ground. This, yeah, the whole thing blows my mind.
So
Yeah,
when it comes into some of the general critiques of crypto, some of the positions are really coming from a place of privilege when you think about it, because in North America, it's especially in Canada, it's super easy for us to transfer money around for folks. For a movie ticket or concert tickets, what have you. We've got Interac e-transfers which are effectively free in the States. A lot of folks use Venmo. Really cheap and easy to send value around, dollars around. There's some places in the world where it's not so straightforward, especially when you're trying to get stuff across borders. And again, that's not a kind of issue that faces most of us on day to day, but there are places in the world where Ukraine, where you're trying to get assets out of one jurisdiction or another quickly, and being able to have a set of 12 words that you can memorize, and you've got your fortune there with you in your head, and no one can take that from you. There are places in Africa where you don't have to, no longer have to rely on usurious middlemen to be able to pay for certain goods or transfer value around, or even like remittances, money being sent from the West to developing nations back home to family and things like that. There's all sorts of use cases that people don't either they're just not aware of them and they're speaking from ignorance, or they just kind of hand wave that kind of stuff. It's like, oh well, there's those are solved problems already. It's like, really? So just because some problems have quote unquote been solved doesn't mean we shouldn't try other things. And yes, people do trot out environmental impact of proof of work systems, but the thing is, proof of work is what has made Bitcoin so secure for the last 13 years, right? It's like actual value in the world comes from proof of work. Like gold has to be mined out of the earth. That is proof of work. Cowrie shell, some of the first currency, had to be dug out of the sand and beach. People had to go and find them. Coins have to be minted. That is all proof of work. And proof of stake has definitely its place. But what some people forget is that in some proof of stake can be gamed, but where such as that the rich get richer. It's basically you're just holding on. The people who are holding on to their assets have the most control, whereas proof of work can be more natively decentralized. So I think we're never going to get rid of proof of work. A lot of the novelty coins out there maybe should go to proof of stake, but there's a reason why Bitcoin hasn't been hacked and hasn't been 51% attacked, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason why it's still around. And I, by no means, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I mean, I think if you want to be sure, Bitcoin and Ether, if Ethereum network survives the switch to proof of stake, that's going to be around forever as well. I mean, that's the question in their transition, right? But again, beyond that, there's some interesting things out there, Avalanche and Aave and Polkadot and Solana, and a lot of these platforms are trying to solve the same problems that Ethereum is kind of solved, but I mean, the gas fees and speed are two of the big things. We've got layer 2 select solutions like the Lightning Network on Bitcoin. It's just a question of getting to critical mass. So I'm sorry, rant over.
Well, the one thing I was going to say is, everyone loves to bring up the amount of energy that it takes for a proof of work network to work. And no one really is sitting back and counting the energy that goes into the Canadian Mint actually going and creating those dollars, the amount of money that's spent transferring things around the country, the power on the ATMs, all of these things, which basically they're encapsulated in a Bitcoin transaction. The gas in the vehicle going to pick up your money and drop it off at the bank. We're not factoring in all of that energy cost. And when you start to think about how that branches and how that spider webs to get the same functionality that Bitcoin gives you just on this blockchain, I'm starting to think that Bitcoin might actually be the greener choice.
Not to mention the energy cost and carbon footprint of, say, like the U.S. military, which has to enforce the legitimacy and defend the U.S. dollar as the global, de facto global currency of exchange. Like, there's a little something there, and conflicts that arise whenever said hegemony gets challenged, like when certain regimes, Libya, want to maybe move to the euro, or like there's a whole lot of other like geopolitical stuff, macroeconomic stuff here that people just kind of like ignore in their little criticisms. Everything in the rest of the world is just a-okay. It's like, again, privilege. Not that I have any thoughts on this matter. Shall we move along?
We shall. Let's go to something lighter, like black holes.
Black hole. That's right. So a couple of weeks ago, it was Black Hole Week at NASA. NASA's in the Caribbean, right? NASA. And they were teasing throughout the week, and they're teasing the idea of just major discoveries at the center of our galaxy, and so on and so forth. And then we eventually got some really cool visualizations. Again, this is not brand new news at this point anymore, but Greg, can you give us just a little quick recap of the significance of some of the images that we've seen of these black holes?
Yeah, so one of the fascinating things that we're seeing here, obviously, is radio telescopes taking a look. And the thing about black holes is we're capturing pretty much the absence of material here with the accretion disk. These are stunning images. And so these are based on the radio data that we're getting. These are simulations to suggest what it would look like. It's really fascinating because Star Trek Discovery actually had something like this show up in their show this year, and looked startlingly like what it is that we're seeing here. It was a really neat sort of concept. The fact that we're able to see it with this kind of resolution now, it's we're getting a far better idea of how these things work. So some of the data that we're getting is actually contradicting some of how we thought it worked. So, Sagittarius A star, and like the things that we're seeing at the center of our own galaxy. There was so much dust and so much in the way of being able to see this before that we were never able to actually get a clear enough image. But these new telescopes just do an absolutely phenomenal job of being able to essentially take multiple exposures, radio exposures, and filter out that noise. Really cool stuff.
And what's fascinating is with these images that we've seen, some of the digital recreations that you've mentioned, in addition to this somewhat as of yet low res image from the black hole in Sagittarius A, is that it's kind of confirming some of the revised theories that came about regarding black holes around the time of the movie Interstellar. Like Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan, gave us a new way to visualize black holes, where not only did we have the hole, not only did we have light around, but we saw like almost like a disk, which was a result of the bending of light all around the black hole. I mean, we talked about gravity wells and all that sort of thing. And now, and that was based on updated theories, but now we're actually starting to see actual images from deep space that confirm these theories, which is really exciting. And it's kind of hard to tell in the Sagittarius A image because it is a little blurry, but as these things become more and more clear, like we from the simulations that have been done, like you mentioned, like it actually confirms those types of images that we saw in an amazing movie from almost 10 years ago. So
yeah,
life imitates art, as they say.
Apparently Nolan is just absolutely insufferable about it. I told you so.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time. He's just busy thinking of new ways to make like dialogue unintelligible in his movies. I'm looking at
first. You don't let Christian Bale turn his head, and then you don't let people talk. It's a knock-on effect.
Exactly. So that's not all we have in space news this week. Boeing docked a Starliner capsule, an unmanned capsule, to the ISS in the last few days, and this marks a change. It gives another option for NASA instead of having to rely on SpaceX for all of their launches. Now, we didn't have any personnel in this, but I imagine they will be having manned flights soon as well. But I mean, this is, I think, a symptom of the new age of NASA, where they're not trying to do everything themselves. They're hiring, contracting private sector partners to do these things for them. And by having a multitude of partners, it de-risks operations for NASA somewhat. And Boeing has been a long time defense contractor, and has worked with NASA in the past too. But this is nice because this is like a little bit of a different angle on the getting stuff to the ISS. Any thoughts on this?
It's great. I'm excited to see people in it. And, it's
not just mannequins.
As great as it is to have Elon ferrying people up there, that's wonderful. Being vulnerable to not being able to get people back down because of the country that's controlling some of the descent spacecraft is a bit challenging. So having something that would actually be able to step into that is also good. We're going to see a lot of stuff in the next 5 to 10 years that it's been brewing for the last 20 to 25. And I think some reprioritization has happened because of folks like Elon and Jeff.
We're on a first name basis with them.
We are, yeah. If you're going to try to buy Twitter, you're just Elon. If you're literally going to try to dig into every piece of my life because of crap that I bought off your website, you're Jeff. So straight up.
But it's okay because he owns the Washington Post as well. So.
And democracy does die in darkness. So it's a really pithy democracy dies in darkness.
It dies in your shipment tracking is what I'm still waiting for something that I ordered a couple of months ago. Don't even get me started.
I put the wrong address on a package that I was trying to order a couple of. It was just like some 3M command hooks to put pictures, and I got 2 of the digits backwards. So, and apparently, like I fixed it in the delivery notes, but they couldn't quite get to that point. So the guy called like 4 times. I had a supervisor call. I'm like, maybe we should just return this and I should just order it again, because it seems like y'all aren't really capable of making this leap of judgment. But apparently it'll be here by 10 tonight.
Well, maybe we can order some compressed air to help tidy up the Mars rover InSight, which unfortunately is going to be shutting down soon. I think it's exceeded expectations as it is, but apparently its solar panels are so coated in Martian dust that it is got very little power left, and the solar rays aren't getting through to charge it up anymore. So apparently it took one last selfie. A little sad. We can see before and after photos in the articles, like how it was before, nice and clean. And so that dust is the enemy of tech, and obviously a concern for solar powered missions and equipment. We also want to think about deep space missions. Could solar panels get damaged, of course, from things like micrometeorites, but I mean, not that there's a lot of moisture up there, but could they ice over? Should they get too close to Europa and pick up a little moisture and things like that? So there's all these kind of real world considerations, and I'm sure you see some of the comments on this story, and people are like, well, didn't they think about that? It's like, I'm sure they did, and there's always a question of how many backup systems are you going to have to try to maybe ditch some of this dust through vibration or some other scheme here, because all those systems add complexity, cost, risk, and weight to missions. So great. With that in mind, and with your ever increasing knowledge in the world of astronomy and space missions and stuff like that, do you think they should have tried to push a little further, or is the couple of years that we've got out of the Mars InSight rover kind of good enough, and we didn't really need to worry about the dust?
These things are designed to mission parameters. Right. And almost without exception, they have outperformed mission parameters in some cases by almost a decade. This isn't like a video game console where, we're looking to have the latest and greatest features here, and I want it to last as long as it can last. No, this thing is here for the mission that it was set out to do. If it continues on to do more and we're gathering more scientific data from it, that is fortuitous. But it's we don't over-engineer a device or a product to address a set of mission parameters. We engineer it to fit those mission parameters, and if it goes beyond that, great. So these things have paid for themselves. That said, like thinking about this and just thinking about dust collection here on Earth, just the first thing that came to mind is like, I wonder if there's something that they could do with electrostatics that could, maybe run a charge through there and see if you could do that. And the second thing, which would probably be less expensive, is just send Matt Damon with a broom, and that could probably. He's got a good track record for getting home. Sorry.
That's all right. We're great minds think alike. Send him back up there. Just just a little Swiffer action, and
he could grow some potatoes. You could use those as batteries. That could power it. It's just really, again, it's a knock-on effect. So.
Some people were suggesting to send the Mars helicopter over there, even though it's like very far away. But you go over and just come at an angle and try and blow some of that dust off. I mean, that would be remarkable. But so these people forget, like these things don't respond to commands in real time, and you got to set in a pre-programmed parameters and instructions and whatnot, and things aren't necessarily as easy as they are in the movies. But it's remarkable what they've done so far. But I got to admit, it's still it tugs at your heartstrings a little bit when you think about these rovers that have they've kind of done their thing, and then they go to sleep forever all alone on a planet far, far away. And I get a little misty, like it's stupid. I get a little misty just thinking about it right now, right? It's like getting a little bit of Wall-E vibes.
That's an interesting thing. They go to sleep forever. No, they don't.
Feature.
Right? Well, no. Here's the thing. Like we actually saw this with which one's this? This is Insight Curiosity. Anyway, one of them had its panels covered over with dust, and a windstorm came along and swept it clean, and the batteries powered back up.
There we go.
These little guys could live again.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
If you haven't had a chance, Disney's got a movie called Roving Mars. It's available on Disney Plus now. I've got it on Blu-ray. My dad and I watched it the first weekend I was here in Vancouver in IMAX. It's worth your time.
Duly noted. This is just another one for the list. In other slightly closer to home news, a Starlink launches satellite internet for RVs. Now, it does cost $25 more than the land-based service, and you will be deprioritized as a way to protect the interests of those who are, do have the land-based service, because, if you've got a bunch of RVs, roaming around and they cluster in one area, and you don't want them to diminish the existing service for land-based people. But I'm kind of excited about this because, ever since high school, my misguided dream is to live in a VW van for some reason. Not sure if my lovely wife is quite on board with that yet. Every once in a while, I do send her like listings for RVs. But one of the things is when you're on the road is that if you have the privilege of being a mobile professional, sometimes just getting good, solid, affordable bandwidth can be challenging, right? You can do your roaming plan, you can do something with AT&T or Verizon, but that stuff, you're not going to be watching a lot of Netflix or anything like that on the road because you chew through your data so quickly. And so something like Starlink at $100, $150 a month is providing great, reliable land-based internet for folks, in homes with fixed locations, much superior to their previous satellite offerings, offering quasi broadband speeds. So to be able to have that on the top on an RV, I got to say, it kind of intrigues me a little. And you being Mr. Campertunity on occasion, would you be strapping a dish to the top of your Mini Cooper?
I'm gonna go with a hard no on that one. I actually really, I'm starting to like unplugging. I guess I knew it would happen with age, but it's finally happened. I'm slightly mad. But it's funny. My parents are still with this ridiculous microwave cellular provider out in Ontario, who shall not be named. And they were a bigger conglomerate that bought up the local player, and the service has just gone to hell. But my dad sent me a small video of something that gave me hope for them, because I put them on a waiting list for Starlink. And what I saw was the truck with the auger and the fiber as they're finally dragging fiber out to St. George, the little town between Brantford and Cambridge. So apparently by September they should have broadband. Which when they built the place, they were told 2 years. That was 2006. Yeah.
Well,
So yeah.
takes
So
time.
I mean, here's the thing. I might get this for them, just given the fact that there is no wait list. The $25 extra is like, there's your premium, right? I want it now. So
One little thing I forgot to ask you on our previous story about dust on Mars is um, regarding our other electronic devices. Now, you alluded to video game consoles. Have you ever experienced any performance issues with any electronics due to contaminants, be it dust, hair, pet dander, or otherwise?
oh yeah, yeah. PlayStation 3, I opened that thing up and I swear to God, like I almost like a mitt full of this, like a matted, and it's like, where did that, and it's mostly cat hair, because the PlayStation 3 had this like massive intake. So it was sucking all of this cat hair in. When you take a look at like my PC now, it has, all of these beautiful mesh filters on everything, but they have to come off once or twice a week, because it's putting through that much air. Those are probably the two biggest ones, that I can recall. Um, I've seen some crazy things in my time back when I used to work for Future Shop. There was a fella who bought a computer, and bought over the course of years, bought a series of computers, and would always bring them back in because they weren't quite operating the way that they should. And at one point, I went back to talk to the tech, and he's like, I literally can't. And it was nicotine and tar.
Ugh.
There was that, this fellow was smoking that much that it was like a resin on the surface of the computer. So yeah.
As for myself, I too had to tidy up my PS3. I did not go so far as to take it apart, but I have on more than one occasion gone and cleared out the intake and/or exhaust ports on them, because they tend to get a little bunged up just the way that they're designed. Because it runs warm, and you want to make sure it gets maximum air there with that the 7-core cell processor from the future. And
Remember when like your fridge was going to have one of those, and your air conditioner, and yeah.
The last gasp of the IBM Power PC platform there. I had a good friend who his iPhone microphone was dying, and he was just like, it could barely hear him when he was talking on his phone anymore. And then I was with him, and I took a look at it, and he has 3 young girls, and they were even younger back at the time. And of course, sometimes you pass your device over to a child to keep them amused for a little while. And sometimes young children get into other things too, like maybe they're not the tidiest when eating food and whatnot. I said, buddy, you just got to take a needle or something, like to scrape the crud out of the microphone holes in the bottom of the phone here. And he did that. It's like, oh, good as new. just saved himself several $100s.
Be careful with the needles, because there are grills on the inside that you can perforate. There are actually some really good kits. Like they've got that goop stuff now. You can basically just like
I know the stuff you're talking about, that green stuff that you kind of mush into keyboards and stuff as
well.
well.
Yeah, not Goop the Crazy Magazine, but Goop the stuff that.
Yeah, no candles here, no of questionable nature or scent. Moving right along to things of a questionable nature, Google I/O was a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately we didn't get a chance to chat about it. And again, it's not brand new news anymore, but just to catch a few folks up that may not have had a chance to watch the announcements. There have been some great recap videos out there. The Verge does a good job of doing recaps of keynotes from Microsoft and Google, Samsung, Apple, and others. And we've got Apple WWDC coming up in June, not too long from now. But all sorts of announcements, and including things like, well, it seems, Gray, to be honest, that at least half of the stuff was like sometime soon in the future, like some amazing AR glasses demo with real-time translation, a really moving video of a woman and her mother having a discussion that was being translated from English to I believe Mandarin and back. That was pretty cool, but like that's a year, 2 years in the future. They tease what do you know, a tablet? That, the Android tablet space has been dead for a while, and now they're coming back with a tablet. Oh, but next year, some neat enhancements to search and maps. Google Nest Hub, Android 13, they teased a little bit, and Pixel Buds Pro. So there, incremental changes there. Pixel 6a. So this year 2 of Google's fascinating strategy of releasing their low-cost phone based on the previous generation, only a few months before the new hotness comes out in the fall. So it's another way to get the most out of the previous platform there. And again, really aggressive prices. I think we're looking at under $500 US, $449 for the entry level Google Pixel 6a. And then they, of course, tease the 7 and 7 Pro, which will be out in the fall. What was the key highlights for you, aside from the fact that a lot of the products they talk about were kind of going back to the well of things that they tried in the past and didn't do so great with? Apparently, and Google Wallet's been updated as well, which was Google Wallet, then Android Wallet, then Google Pay, and now it's Google Wallet again. Again, the tablet. Taking another kick at the can 11 years later with the glasses type thing, except far more capable than Google Glass. We've got the AR aspect here, like augmented reality, and then resuscitating the watch line with Android Wear and some of the Fitbit benefits starting to roll in, be folded in. But now, of course, because of antitrust concerns, you have to have a separate Fitbit account to use. You can't use your Google account to Fitbit data and all that kind of stuff with the new Pixel Watch that's coming. It looks very nice. To be fair, it looks kind of like an Apple Watch, but round. But what were your faves and most intriguing bits of the Google I/O announcement, Gray?
Oh, it's fascinating to see them kind of recommit to the tablet. I don't think it would have been hard to do this a long time ago. So it's kind of like, why now? Like, are they really seeing that Apple is their dominance in the tablet market is just such a terrifying thing in this space that we're gonna, reopen this grave and drag the body out again.
And Apple's not even doing that great with iPad OS. I mean, there's a lot of the Apple hardware is amazing, but there's so many power users are still criticizing the operating system that there's a lot of untapped potential there. So maybe Google sees an opportunity to get in. But I think it's amusing here. We've got 20 plus optimized Google tablet apps. Oh my!
Wow.
Excuse me while I take my clothes off. Over 20 tablet optimized apps. I mean, from I mean, that's from Google. That's first party, of course. But I'm like, really?
That's a lot of apps. Apple's going to have a hard time against those 20 apps. It's a tough one. Yeah,
please go on.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Like, people complain about iPad OS and the pros, and it's like, if you had that power, you just use that power to go and make really nice videos about how Apple's next operating system is doing the right thing for you. It's a bit of an echo chamber, right? It's like I don't really think of myself as a power user when it comes to my iPad. Mm-hmm. But I get some stuff done, and I'm kind of looking at it going, perhaps this is not the type of thing that's meant to be done with a tablet. Perhaps we have laptops for a reason, but what do I know?
I mean, there's a certain subset of nerds out there that really, really want to run Mac OS on iPad hardware because it's got the power to do it now.
Yeah, and if wishes were horses, more men would ride. But
it doesn't work with Apple's current strategy. That's all. They want to get some of everything. But to be fair, this new tablet from Google, low light on details, looks nice. But I mean, the one key innovation, I mean, we've seen it before, obviously, is moving the webcam to the landscape orientation, which I think that's it. We're long overdue for that on the Apple side. And of course, people say, they could just do two webcams. Like, Apple's not going to do that. But more and more people are simply using their tablets in landscape mode.
The Magic Keyboard forces you to use, and like, I use that as a stand. So that's one massive miss from Apple. And I mean, take a look at the watch. They duffed the Series 7 launch badly. So, like,
in what respect?
Where was the physical upgrade, right? And like, everyone was talking about this thing. And that was the reason
because
we
of
were all
the
waiting for it.
leaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there the conspiracy theories were saying that actually they weren't able to work this time around, so there was a last minute change to use the old form factor, and there's some clues at that, et cetera, et cetera. And now the
Yeah.
rumors are that, well, maybe this fall we'll get the new look, or maybe it'll be an Apple Watch Pro, and they'll still keep the old form factor for the more
Whatever it
entry
is,
level options.
my Series 4 is kind of almost not making it through the day.
Oh no!
So I need a new one. And that's the thing is, like, for many people, if they got to that point, they were probably just, well, the new Apple Watch isn't really doing a whole lot, so I'll go try one of these other. And this graph is that table is just terribly laid out. Like when you take a look at the actual how the market has grown, the way that they've compressed it to look like Apple has, the reduction in market share does not equate to a reduction in
units. Yes,
units sold.
Yeah, because the pie is growing. But their share, but Apple's, but maybe this is a sign of Apple, like, if getting complacent. If Android is in Google and Android are, so Google and Wear OS, or whatever they're going to call it for on their watches now. Yeah, I guess it's Wear OS, because through the licensing partners, if you have the same kind of approach as you do with Android on smartphones and Windows on PCs, that this is the strategy that is going to end up working, and the first party watches from Google itself are going to represent a tiny fraction of the overall Wear OS market share. I mean, Fitbit's got a certain amount in there. I'm just curious about the amount in gray that marked other. Garmin's still in play, of course, and Apple, of course, still has the plurality of users. But this chunk, this Wear OS chunk, is growing, and that's for all their partners, I suppose. But I get what you're saying. Like, the pie is growing, so it's not like Apple's watch sales are declining, but their share is maybe a sign that it's time for them to, as they say in terrible marketing, kick things up a notch.
Kick things up a notch.
But so, what do you think of the look here of the new Pixel watch coming? I think it's supposed to be coming in June, isn't it? Yeah,
it's neat.
There you go.
It's nice.
Look, a digital crown. Never seen that before.
It's okay.
They've got I mean, that's one of the criticisms is that not everyone wants a rectangular, slab on their wrist, something that looks like a scaled down smartphone. There's a lot of watches out there for decades and decades, if not longer, have been round, and clocks have been round for centuries. So it's nice to have an option. And the trick is with the interface, and we saw in some of the demos, like, you have clipping in the edge, around the edges, like the corners, right? So computer type stuff is well suited to a rectangle or a square. But if you're looking at the fashion side of it, which Apple leaned into hard while Johnny Ive was still around, having a round option might be nice. But do you see Apple ever adding some more options to shapes of Apple Watch, or are they going to stick with the tried and true?
I can't say I never see them doing it. I just don't think it would come anytime soon. Like, that works, right? And it's just they'd have to, it's ironically, like, I've got a round face on there right now, but I'm using the corners for complications. So it's like, you get more data in a rectangle.
Why do you got to make things so complicated? So how about the AR play that Google is teasing here? And again, we're not sure exactly when this is going to arrive, but it seems like we're getting closer and closer to the universal translator Star Trek future, except just on a heads-up display on our glasses. Excited?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I'll give it a go when it comes out. Right. It's I think anything that brings us closer together and makes it easier for us to speak to each other is going to be a net benefit. So the challenge obviously is context. So hopefully Google has managed to master that, because their presentations certainly don't.
And hopefully, and when they stick with whatever they do launch, they stick with for long enough for people to feel like they're getting their money's worth, because it's tough. Some people feel that Google has lacked focus, and maybe they need a management shakeup, because they do so many different things, and their messaging strategy is a perfect example there. There's,
I just don't trust them.
Yeah.
Like if you start to use a product for any given period of time and you make it part of your workflow, and then suddenly somebody in a lab or somebody counting beans decides to pull the plug, and you're like, you have no idea what you've done to so many people around the world. And just because you decided to embrace, extend, and now extinguish yourselves, come on, guys, stop doing this. It's getting annoying.
We're still bitter about Google Reader, aren't we?
Yes. Was that unclear?
Well, if you're interested in learning more about Google I/O and the announcements there, Tasia has got a great video which we'll mention at the very end and show you a little clip of. But she does a great recap of all the key announcements there. In some other Google announcements in the past couple of weeks, there's a few things. We'll just run past them real quick, and you can comment on them as you see fit, Gray. There's some news about how to remove yourself from Google search results, which is not the same as removing information about yourself from the internet, but Google is what makes information visible on the internet for a lot of folks. I mean, aside from things that are linked directly, but being able to Google people and people to Google you and have information that you don't want to see, have it not be visible, that's an option that they will start to open up based on some internal policy changes. So that's one of the things. Enhancements to you're down with that? So they're gonna start building getting your trust back?
A little bit.
Okay, a little bit.
Google gets my trust back by forgetting me. That's
exactly
telling.
And part of some of these things are, of course, in response to legislation and movements around the world, like the right to be forgotten. EU has been really on the case when it comes to it's tough. There's good EU and bad EU. Sometimes they really get things right. They're really looking out for consumers, and sometimes they claim to be looking out for consumers, but clearly demonstrate they don't understand how the internet works. And
I think that's the plot of the next Mission Impossible movie, isn't it? Good EU versus bad EU.
Exactly. Just like good Elon, bad Elon. It's
right.
Good Google, bad Google. In what I think is good Google, bringing Street View history to phones, whereby you can look at Google Street View from the past. I have not been able to get this to work on anything I've looked at yet, but the idea is that you could see past Google Street View images of given addresses, landmarks, and so on. Now, in my fantasy world, and maybe they can do this someday, is that they would somehow be able to layer in photography from decades, if not, I guess centuries. We've only 150 years into photography at this point, but to see what downtown Vancouver looked like in the early 1900s.
That's doable with their API.
So, but it's just going to be a real patchwork, and to get enough from the same era and all that kind of, but that's the kind of thing that, I mean, for educational purposes and virtual museum purposes and whatnot. I mean, what we've got so far goes back to 2009. I mean, that's nice. Yeah. I can see what car was parked in front of my house, and then maybe
yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: they've got all of the tools needed to do that. Not just take like an existing string of images, but disparate images, and then be able to perhaps use deep learning to figure out what this would have looked like with all of these things strung together. Very, very neat idea. I think that'd be cool.
Part of the announcement here, Google revealed their Insta 360 Pro for taking this adding Google Street View imagery for the inside of buildings. So that's another feature that I believe they talked about Google I/O being able to do Google Street View inside museums and buildings and other sorts of stuff. So this this handheld 360 camera is adorable, and I want one.
Actually, a character from Wall-E as well. So
I believe so. Yes. And then
I think it's called DALL-E, isn't it? No, that's
DALL-E is their AI. So that's another one of our. OpenAI has DALL-E, which has been generating some mind-bending photorealistic materials just based on text input. But Google is not one to just let others run away with these sorts of things. And so their text-to-image AI, they claim, delivers unprecedented photo realism. However, it is not open to the public. So we've got some examples here of an alien octopus floating through a portal reading a newspaper, Android mascot made from bamboo, and a blue jay standing on a large basket of rainbow macarons. But of course, So there's a number of projects on the go at the moment, such as Dolly, and some of them I have actually beta access to one. I can't remember the name of it. I'll do it as a future pick of the week, and some really wild AI generated stuff that one can generate now. You have to use a Discord server to send the instructions. It's quite wild. But here we have an oil painting of a fuzzy panda wearing sunglasses and a black leather jacket skateboarding on a beach. I mean, who wouldn't want that? Is this going to put artists out of business, Gray?
That feels unprecedented to me. Everything after this will be precedented, but that unprecedented. Well done.
Should Ray be concerned for for her one of her careers?
No, I don't think so. I mean, and this is the thing it's going to come down to is like do we appreciate the art solely for the aesthetic value, or do we also appreciate art because of perhaps the work that went into it from a human being? Are you there just to have something that looks or sounds pretty, or are you looking to have that little piece of the soul that is imparted into it? I could be wrong. It could be that in the grim dark future of humanity, there is only machines making art. I hope not.
Speaking of machines with souls, we had a trailer for season 4 of Westworld on HBO, and I gotta admit, I didn't even realize they were doing a season 4. Season 3 was so different from the first 2 seasons, which largely took place in the Western Park, like the original Westworld movie with Yul Brynner, and of course, hilarity ensued and tragedy. And season 3 was in a city, and it looks like and there was lots of drama that happened, and the machines, kind of taking matters into their own hands. What do you think of season 4 here? I know that you're still working through season 3 itself. Do you like what you saw in the changes with season 3, or do you want to go back to the park?
Yeah, no, I'm quite content with this. I'm really I'm hoping for them to build the final reveal, where we're going to see 6 from Battlestar Galactica actually emerge as and it will bring that full circle.
And then 7 of 9, of course. We can't.
There you go.
So that's one trailer we're excited about this week. Another is, again, another season. I think it's season 3 of, speaking of 7 of 9 and Star Trek. Oh, don't actually.
Can I tell you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I watched the first few episodes of The Orville.
Yeah.
And it was like, this feels like a rehash of The Next Generation. Right.
Some people say it's a love letter to the next generation, Gray.
Yeah. Well, that's a warmed over, rehashed love letter. That's what the first couple of episodes felt like, right? Okay. And that was just like, there wasn't the Seth MacFarlane jokes I've heard on all of his other series. That's not that they're not bad, they're not good jokes. It was just like, I've heard all of these before, right? And so I was just like, I've got limited time. You've lost me. I saw this trailer and went, shit, I got to go back and watch that. Because this looks good. This looks like you're able to crack a joke with some action. There's meaning and feeling, and it's a little irreverent, but still kind of serious. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll go back and watch.
And it got more that way as things progressed through the first, was it 2 seasons of The Orville, I believe, and I think this is season 3. So I mean, I get your concern there about the Seth MacFarlane, Family Guy style humor, American Dad style humor. American Dad, starring Patrick Stewart on occasion, of course. Right. So clearly Seth MacFarlane, the creator of The Orville and the other shows that we've mentioned, loves Star Trek and wanted to basically make his own, and I guess never got a chance. So I figured he's going to make his own. The effects are not bad, not super duper, but it doesn't take itself too seriously. It has a very next generation feel of being mostly episodic as opposed to the serialized stories that we've seen from Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard. Which some people have had issues with for one reason or another. And I really enjoy serialized storytelling. I like the large season-long arcs, but they're hard to pull off well. So we'll see what they're doing with the Orville here, because it looks like they might have a bit of an arc going on, but maybe blended in with the Monster of the Week type thing.
It feels like it's gone a little Babylon 5, which is kind of
which
It's
I
kind of fun to
never,
throw in
which
there.
I never watched at all.
Oh, wow.
I think I was biased against it because I thought, oh, this just kind of looks like Star Trek, but not as good.
So J. Michael Straczynski, when he was coming up with the concept for this show, had 5 seasons of concepts written out, and every character had a trap door because if the actor, got hit by a bus or was, caught doing something unsavory, he'd be able to write them out of the show. And something happens in the first season in the real world that affected how that show was produced. I can say, as a diehard, Trek fan, Babylon 5 is worth your time. It's really
Great.
good.
One more for the list. That's all we
I'll watch
need.
the Orville. You watch Babylon 5. The problem was the 26 episode seasons, right? Because there's just there is filler in there, and the problem with Babylon 5 is that there kind of isn't, like, even on episodes that are a little fillery, there's still like important plot details, so you can't just like blow them out of the water. Anyway.
So another trailer we saw this week, season 3 official trailer for The Boys. This is the problem. It's like, it's hard to go back and watch old shows when there's so many good newer shows still being made. And for those not familiar with The Boys, it's based on a series of graphic novels. And just imagine if Justice League of America was composed of a bunch of really terrible people, and they're all basically being managed by a really insidious corporation as well,
run by Gus Fring.
Exactly. So
Anthony Starr, who plays Homelander here, is just an absolute treasure.
Yeah.
Like, phenomenal. He's a riot on Twitter as well. But wow, what a great show! Like, it's just, and I mean, I would literally listen to Carl Urban read the phone book.
Well, and that was what at first got hooked me into the show. It's like, I'll watch pretty much anything Carl Urban is in.
Diabolical.
And he did a decent job as McCoy and the Kelvin Timeline Star Trek movies, which apparently they're making a 4th one of.
I'll take it.
Yeah. So and just like the very first episode of The Boys hooks you because something really dramatic happens quite early on, just as an example of the hyper violence that we just witnessed very briefly in this trailer here. So not for the faint of heart, definitely not for children, but kind of dark, interesting take on what if we did not live in our existing universe where superheroes are all mostly awesome, and what if instead they were all really terrible people and did terrible things all the time. We've even got a riff on like Falcon and Winter Soldier here with a little bit of quasi Captain America action, right?
That is Jensen Ackles playing Soldier Boy.
There you go.
Who is taken off ice and may have a superpower that does things to other soups.
And it looks like Carl Urban might get souped up a little bit as well.
So this was the premise of the comics. The comics, they had Compound V, and so they were superpowered cops going up against superpowered heroes, and so they were able to take them on, head to head. I found this approach to be far more interesting. So now to see that they're possibly going to have, which we've just seen in that moment, they're possibly going to have powers and how it affects them. I'm here for it.
And I think it's good that, they've obviously, they didn't they didn't dive right into that. They took the first 2 seasons to build toward that. Right.
Yes.
So, they were keeping their powder dry, so to speak. So then, of course, along with that, just because it's the world we live in, the meta world we live in now, the producers of The Boys created a fake trailer for Dawn of the Seven, produced by Vought Studios, Vought being the evil corporation that manages the soups in The Boys, basically making kind of like their take on the Justice League Snyder Cut. It's like there's so many layers to all of this. I think it's just brilliant.
They've actually been doing broadcasts every week from their own Fox News news entity talking about the world of The Boys.
And we got what's his face? Greg is in there from Heroes, the actor. What's his? Greg Gutman or something? Not Gutman. Right. I can't remember his name, but So they take that, Zack Snyder. I still have not seen the Snyder cut of.
So Zack Snyder actually saw the tweet about it and then retweeted it, wishing the director, whoever is of the Dawn of the Seven. The best of luck with the launch of his cut.
Amazing.
That was great. Yeah.
So we're just coming in for a soft landing here. We're doing pretty well for time. All it took was to cut 2/3 of the stories and push them off to next week. Pick of the week, Gray. This is not the pick I was expecting, so we might have to do a bonus pick in here because I didn't.
I can talk about the other thing as well if you want me to.
I didn't want to steal what I thought would be your pick. I was keeping it for you, but let's start with this one first.
Yeah, Destiny 2. The Season of the Haunted has come out today, and so this is the most recent season in the Witch Queen expansion. It's very cool. They've redone the Solar subclass to Solar 3.0. Great story. Like, you got Lance Reddick from The Wire.
I have no idea what that means.
So you've got multiple different types of powers in the game. You've got Arc, which is electricity, Solar, which is fire. You've got Void, which is basically like purple goop, and Stasis, which is ice. And so Stasis came out with Beyond Light. It's the most recent of the powers. So the older powers are getting an upgrade now, and so they've basically taken our solar powers and changed them all completely. So it's been an exciting day to see what's going on in there. But there's just some really great storylines. There's like I said, Lance Reddick from the Wire is actually one of the actors here, and we had a few other big names like Gina Torres and Nathan Fillion. They've killed off Nathan Fillion's character, and Gina Torres they replaced her with a sound-alike. But now they're actually able to do more voice work, and so it's really neat. It feels like almost like a survival horror game. So I'm very happy with this. My pick of the week. If you like video games and you haven't played Destiny 2, go play Destiny 2. If you don't like video games,
you might have a backup pick.
Right? Do we want to talk about Strange New Worlds?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just what a joy. From the moment that you see the Enterprise just rise onto the screen, and then there's this beautiful rainbow trail as it just whips around around the solar system. It's funny because in that initial little stinger at the beginning, it just says Star Trek, and I wonder if they're going to be using that for future series or something. But it's like this is Star Trek, and now the show's starting, and then they do their full intro a little later on, which is kind of neat. But we've discussed some of the concerns that people have had about Discovery and Picard, the serialized storytelling format, which again I think is the least of the problems. Honestly, some people feel like there's myself included, that sometimes they get bogged down in a lot of feelings when there's, you're 10 minutes away from Earth getting destroyed and stuff like that. It's time for a primal scream therapy session. Yeah. There's some stuff. And also like a bit of the stop crying and go save the universe.
Yeah, exactly. And does Burnham have to actually solve everything? We know she's got a Messiah complex, but it's like, come on already. And how about getting to know some of the other members of the bridge crew, et cetera, like, in Discovery.
We started 2 and 3 and 4.
That's a little bit, yeah. And but I think most of us can
agree.
The
first episode,
of
Strange New Worlds,
yeah,
you knew the bridge crew
exactly, and that was one of the highlights of season 2 is we got to know the bridge crew a little bit. So they did some groundwork there, and of course we know a little bit about Pike and Spock from the past, and very little about the original number 1 from the original pilot of Star Trek, originally played by
Majel Barrett,
right,
Jim Roddenberry's wife,
who later played the ship's computer and on Next Generation, who also played Nurse Chapel on the original Star Trek as well. So in Strange New Worlds, we have a new Nurse Chapel. We've got number 1, and her name being Una just makes me so happy because it's like, we should have thought of that. That's so obvious. We learned something about Una, very interesting in the last episode.
Yeah.
About her origins too. So I think
they're not shying away from the morality plays.
Yep.
Right. The basic premise of Star Trek before was to talk about major societal issues, which people complain about now, but it's like that was the foundation of it. Mm-hmm. And to basically create this microcosm upon which we could look and say, this is us. Right. And the first few episodes have been just absolutely bang on. Like, they're really good.
And people, everyone I've talked to so far that, had either reservations or outright hostility toward Discovery and or Picard are quite enjoying Strange New Worlds so far. Like it seems like they're nailing it. And
don't get me wrong. Yeah. I love those other 2 series because personally I think the best Star Trek ever is the one that's playing in front of me whenever I'm watching it. Right.
We have an embarrassment of Star Trek riches at the moment.
Yes. Yeah. But like Anson Mount, Star Trek's Starfleet's first captain, whose name is also Instructions. So That hair, though.
Well, yeah,
Jesus.
to be fair, the hair was a little ridiculous in the first couple episodes. Like, come on.
I think it's there because in case of emergency, you can actually do an emergency hair separation and have that thing fly the battle bridge.
Got to separate the sausage section, and so yeah, and like again, even though they're doing the episodic as opposed to serialized storytelling, like I'm on board. And some of the criticism people had about the other series is like people would say, oh, it doesn't feel like Star Trek. It's like, okay, I get it, but I think Star Trek can be different things, just like Marvel can be different things, Star Wars can be different things. But watching Strange New Worlds, it I think unquestionably feels like Star Trek, like classic Trek. Like let's put those let's put that qualifier. It feels like classic Trek, and I think they're nailing it so far.
Yeah, I mean, if you need that, then this is absolutely for you.
Yeah.
I don't need it, and this is still absolutely for me. I was scouring their website to see if I could buy one of those away team jackets.
Oh yeah, they're hot, eh?
Oh yeah. Yep. So I bought the boots. Did I tell you about the boots?
I thought they were too angular.
Well, the other flea bugs, these ones have the Delta on it, so it's cosplay. I bought the boots.
Well done.
They're getting here next month.
If you want to learn about the boots, search our YouTube channel because we've talked about them at some point. So and I think that's the magic of Strange New Worlds so far, is that it's pleasing the people who liked Discovery and Picard, and it seems to be pleasing the people who didn't. So, and it's okay for people to like different things, but when you can bring everyone together, that's really what the future is all about. Okay, my pick of the week was slightly less happy, but again, very well done. And that is the season 3 for Barry has started. And Barry is on HBO, starring Bill Hader of Saturday Night Live fame. And we had a bit of a layoff thanks to COVID, but Barry is about a hitman trying to turn his life around. And he moves to California and takes acting lessons. And those acting lessons are facilitated by none other than Mr. Gene Cousineau, played by Henry Winkler, also known as the Fonz.
Nice.
And there's a lot of bad things that happen because no one leaves the firm, as it turns out. And his former handler is still in touch with him, and he still ends up doing jobs once in a while. Meanwhile, he's still trying to take his acting lessons. And then you've got the Chechen mob involved. And then eventually, over the seasons, you get the Bolivian mob involved. There's I would say hilarity ensues, but it's more tragedy than, there's funny moments. It's amazingly well done, amazingly well acted. Like, there's some horrific violence at points, not super graphic violence, just like terrible things that happen. But Bill Hader is like a dramatic revelation. Like, people know him from comedy, and it is so well done. And he directs a number of the episodes himself. I highly recommend it. If you got to take it in limited doses because it can get a little dark. I think probably, even though I never watched it, from what I've heard, it's maybe similar in tone to a little bit Breaking Bad. Yeah, you got your anti-hero and a lot of dark themes, but highly recommended. And just really glad Barry's back.
I will give that a go.
And I think we did it, Gray.
Good.
Oh, yeah, except just our friend, the lovely Tasia Custody. She's got 2 videos because we didn't have a show last week. She's got the best Chrome extensions for remote meetings.
Nice.
And then
check that out.
The best announcements, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, from Google I/O 2022. So you can find those videos at TasiaCustody.com or youtube.com/TasiaCustody. And you can find out more about Momentous at Momentous.tv, Twitter.com/MomentousTV, Facebook.com/MomentousTV, Instagram.com/Momentous.tv. And on YouTube, search my name and look for the Momentous playlist. Gray, it was great to have you back. And I think we're going to miss Tasia next week. Hopefully Will will be back next week. But congratulations on your move. And we'll get back to TV and video games, I suppose, and forget
Yep.
about crypto for a while. Buy the dip.
I'm gonna go out and get some chips and some dip, and then I gotta play some Destiny.
I see what you did there. Great talking to you, bud. We will talk to you next week. And to everyone out there, we hope your week is truly momentous. Come on, let's do this. I'm pushing. Oh, that's my problem. I'm pushing the wrong button. I'm really bad at my job. Bye.